All right, this is going to be a review of some Destroyer gameplay for Dave. He's driving the Fujin, and we're just going to take a look and see if we can get some improvements. So for me, one of the things that I'm always going to do is try to work the flanks with a DD to try to shove people back towards the middle. This is what I do, but that's not the only way to do stuff. Fujin is a pretty solid boat. Obviously, detectability is at 5.4, torps are at 7 kilometers, so you've got, one and some change to work with there as far as detectability versus spotting. So you do have some guns on here, and they will do some work. You can smoke up and kind of farm people and stuff. They kind of prep you for what the Shimikaze line would be, which is just non-powered turrets. These are hand cranks. They're very, very slow. You're not going to try to gunfight people, but you can chew on people if you want to. But where the power of this little boat is, the Kamikaze, the Fujin, Kamikaze R, it's going to be obviously in the torps. You get 2x2, well, 3x2 launchers. And anyway, so with that, you're usually not going to take any serious gunfights. You're just going to be worried about throwing torpedoes. So we have our first target at Iron Duke. Obviously, in this down here at the lower tiers, what you have to be careful of is the fact that you'll have a mix of players and bots. So obviously with bots, you can do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't do with players and vice versa. So you have to be very careful that you're paying attention to who's an actual player and who is a bot when you go to do certain things that you wouldn't normally do one versus another. So you have 3 DDs on the match. You're here, your buddy's with you, Peanut, and then the other one spawned down here. So a lot of times what the game will do is it will scatter them. It'll match them across. So a lot of times you got 3 DDs, there's gonna be 1 per cap. Obviously you two guys spawned kind of over here and then gravitated this way. Your other guy went this way. So we've got 1 DD spotted here. We could have a DD here, and you could have a DD here. So you want to be thinking about the fact that you may have a destroyer in your immediate area as you start to move around near this cap. So as we move across here, really you should be looking, again, like I would try to do is move to either contest this cap, but you have the other DD with you, and just see what you have available to you. So we've got Argentina, Iron Duke, Galicia, and we've been looking to set up for torpedo runs. So we're angling around that. So you got Swift and Silence, which on a boat where you're supposed to be quiet most of the time, that's pretty solid. And the speed without a speed boost is 41, 40, 42 knots. That's pretty darn quick. So you can do a lot of moving very quickly. So one of the biggest things for me is that if I have an opportunity to smoke and farm, a lot of times I'll do that. Or if I want to try to use that to push people away. Now, I watched a little bit of this video before, and you tend to wait for the boat to be inside of the 7K before you throw torpedoes. What you want to do is think about closure rate. How fast is he coming towards you and how fast are torpedoes moving there? So obviously if he was sitting still and you launched your torps from right here, theoretically they wouldn't make it to him because your torpedo range is 7K and he's at 7.6. So they'd stop about 600 meters before. But he's coming forward, and it's going to take him X hundred meters, if not a kilometer, to stop his boat. So if he was static behind this island and firing over, then obviously you'd want to get inside of your torp range. If he's moving towards you or at an angle where he's going to drive into this line as you're moving this way, then when you launch these torpedoes, by the time they hit this point, because you got to think, if you fire the torps right now, they're going to make it here. Well, he's still driving forward, so he's going to be inside of this zone before your torps get there. So you can throw the torps before he hits your theoretical, your max range on your torpedoes. And you can do this with anything. So long as their closure rate is good enough, they'll drive into the distance where the torps are still valid. So really, like right here, you should be throwing torps. So you throw a set there, but you wait until he was inside and you really didn't need to. So obviously we see that he's turning and you're following the white line, which is one thing. So one, we noticed that he was coming to the outside. You threw the torps on the white line, a good tactic. But now what we see is he's turning. So the question is now is how much is he going to turn? So what you want to do is, how do you figure out how much he's going to turn? Well, what's he shooting at? Well, he's probably shooting at this guy, or shooting at this guy, or he's shooting down here. So the odds are he's going to take a line almost directly to you. Since he doesn't have Peanut spotted and he doesn't have you spotted, he doesn't have any reason to turn to you. He's trying to get broadside onto these other boats down here. So you're trying to guess what he's going to do based on what targets he has available to him. So if he's going to shoot as this Monteculi or whatever the hell you call it, then he's probably going to turn directly to you. Now you can do one of two things. You can maintain your angle here and wait for him to present you with his final position, where he's either turning this or this way. But you've got, a 40-second reload on these torps and stuff. So, I mean, you're going to be reloading pretty quickly. So you had the white line originally. You shot at it. He's turning. So you want to usually shoot a set at him and then shoot a set at where you think he's going to turn to. So if he says, hey, if you had like 4 or 5 boats over here and he was by himself, he's not going to stay here and fight that unless he's a dummy. So normally what you do is, if he's going to set up for an angle to where he can shoot multiple people, you shoot right at him and then you shoot where he's going to go. If he was going to turn out and move away from these targets, then you shoot where he's going to be next. So, you use the torps, and you can also use them to kind of corral him. So if you want to keep him broadside to people down here, you can throw torps directly at him. Either he'll mess up and take one, or two, he'll keep his boat straight so he can drive between the torpedoes, keeping his broadsides exposed to targets to the south for longer. So you're waiting, you threw another set, and then you threw another set. And so he's kind of waffling back and forth here. So we get some sets out. I think you actually end up hitting with these. But at this point, you've gotten pretty close to the, to your detectability. So when you're riding the line here, as soon as you hit the line, you need to be bouncing off of it. You can use it to hit and bounce, but you want to get off that line as quick as possible. So we get a torpedo in there. Fantastic. At this point, we're, outside the detectability. He's now kind of got an island and a lot of other things. And really here, you're just following the white line, kind of firing off of it. There's two thought processes as far as when you're shooting torps. You can either shoot at the boat or you can shoot at a lane, like their direction of travel. You got multiple targets, but really the only thing you got available to you is the Iron Duke. The issue is that you're already kind of over here in the corner. And so you got to be real careful with where your boat's already set. So with people doing spotting for you, you could drive in here a little closer, get him to see you, deploy smoke, and you have spots. The Kalmar and the Cavour can both see, and you're drawing him to you so that you could torp him out. Because he's going to get like a salvo on you. He'd probably slap you, but he probably wouldn't kill you if you feel comfortable trying to do that. So here, it's pretty straightforward. He's driving in a straight line. He's moving at full speed. He's focused on the Cavour. He's not really paying attention to you. He's got a heel going. He did cause a flood, so he immediately damaged control party to flood and started to heal. So he starts to turn away because more torps are coming to him. And so at this point, you want to kind of relegate your speed as you're closing this distance with him. At the same time, like right here, you could really just be sitting here throwing torps, shoving people at him, and then shooting him too and start fires and things. So so if we look, because when you hit him the first time, you got a flood, he immediately DCP'd. So obviously, if you should be aware, but the white lights that are on the boat, if you see those white lights flashing, he's popped the DCP. If you see the sparks, he's healing. So really and truly, what he should have done was just pop the DCP or just pop the heal, one or the other, to counteract that, and then worked to save that for when he got hit again. So a lot of times, if you have a boat that you're wanting to work down out on a corner and you hit him with a torp, or say you smoked and you set him on fire and he immediately puts the fire out, well, now all you have to do is just wait. And if you got torps on the way, or if you can go ahead and start another fire, now that fire or that flood is permanent. And now he's being ticked down even more, and you're ticking up your damage. And you're peeling him off of everything else that's happening here. So again, you're a good range. He's flooding. He really doesn't have an opportunity to try to counter it. And down he goes. So now what you're wanting to set up, obviously, for the next boat. So you want one that's either coming to you, or doing something like that. So if you're contesting your cap, then the next target you'd be looking at would be the Argentina. Of course, he's a bot. Now, the bot can spot you for a person. So this is where you have to be careful of going, well, if it was just a bot, I could just charge him and torp him out. But because he's going to spot me and these other boats may suddenly focus me, you got to be careful on where you're at and how you're doing it. So the bot's moving away from everything towards you, and you have more targets coming to you. They've one in the south. Center's kind of a toss-up at the moment, and your guys are kind of scattered here to the south. So you have to be careful of that too. So you start to make a turn here. Keep in mind, anytime that you're making your turns into these boats, you're closing that distance. And with your swift and silence, you get moving pretty fast. And the faster you're moving forward, the harder it is for that boat to turn around. So you want to make sure when you're doing your turns that you're dumping the speed, because you're going to accelerate pretty quickly with this little boat. So you want to get the nose to dig in the water. So you're going to dump the speed, get your turn going, and as you start to move through into like the apex of your turn where you want to turn, then you hit the acceleration. If you're going to do a hard turn, like 180 degrees. What you're having to be careful of here is that you're up against the border here, and you're either you should be making a turn out here to keep him outside your 5-4, and focus him so that you can then come back and focus this guy. And so now I'm sure you're probably scanning the map or looking at something like that. But so we're still driving in close here when we've got a valid target here. So again, with the speed of this guy, and he's at 11K and a 5-4 detectability, you could turn out, smoke. The deli has got both of these guys spotted, and you could probably farm this guy down with guns and torps, because he'll probably stop. And you could farm him with guns out of smoke if you wanted to. So we're still driving in the same direction, and I'm not sure if you didn't see him or what was going on there. Really, there's not a lot of reason to throw wide angle on these guys because you only get to 2 torps. So really and truly, you want those kind of guys on a narrow spread. Now, if you had a target that was kind of moving, he was being really squirrely and moving all over the place, then you could launch like 3 sets of spread torps, kind of give you where you might miss 1 or 2 of them, but he drives into another 1 or 2 of them. But most of the time with this little guy, it's best to shoot your narrow spread. So again, here we're on the wall. There you go, speed boost, and get off of the wall as quick as possible so you can get your acceleration. So then, now keep in mind on your spotting, the way that it obviously works, the tallest point of his boat has to cross this threshold. So the nose of his boat may be inside of this. So like he's at 5'7", you're 5'4", you got 300 meters. Well, he might be at quote unquote 5'4" from you from the nose of his boat, but the tallest point of his ship, if it's not inside the zone, he won't spot you. So you'll have sometimes where you're like, I can't believe I'm not spotted because he's right there. So you want to make sure that any maneuvering you're doing, you want to keep that to a minimum so that you can keep the acceleration and the speed up. And work your angle that you're working right now and throw in your torps. Because in reality, most of your torps end up hitting, or you end up hitting some of your torps. It's really not an issue there. The white line is a guideline, gives you an idea of what the boat is doing. So again, here we're at 5'8", we're doing fine. You could wiggle back and throw some right there at his nose because you got 2 racks that are ready to go. And so right now, you could be throwing torps. So right there, and then I would turn a little bit more and have thrown some this direction. Because again, we're anticipating if he follows the line, fantastic. If he doesn't follow the line, you can see it was starting to move closer to where I would have originally launched him. But again, if you get hits, you get hits. It's fantastic. So again, these boats don't have the maneuverability or the stuff like that. And another thing you have to think about is that, okay, so you fired the first set. He sees the first set. He knows the direction. Again, this is talking about an experienced player versus an inexperienced player. He sees the first set. He's going to put 2 and 2 together that you're obviously probably not right up here because he would see you. So he sees the first set of torpedoes. He's probably going to turn those into you. So you could actually rob yourself of angles for these other 2 sets of torps by having these offset launches. But you can also guide people to where you want them to be for offset launches. So if you wanted to hit him as he was coming straight at you, you could launch a set of torps, wait for him to turn those on, then launch 2 sets. Or if you were over here close to the island and you wanted him to move away from you, you could launch a set at him and get him to turn his nose away from you back towards the middle of the map. So there's all these options and things that you can do with the torpedoes to get people to do what you want them to do, and deploying smoke. Again, if you have someone spotting for you, these guns are not fantastic, but they're still guns and they still start fires. And I have shot many a person with the Fujin. So don't be afraid to smoke and farm people with your guns. Just make sure that you're moving, especially if it's something that has torps or may blind fire you. So again, he starts to dump speed a little bit because he sees it. Because if you're watching his smokestacks, now obviously I've got a mod, and this is what you're seeing on my screen. This is how my game is set up. This is showing that he's at 3/4 speed. What is it? Yeah, 3/4, because it'd be quarter, half, 3/4, and full. So he's at roughly 3/4, and he's turning in, and he's moving forward with the green indicator here. So your other two torps may get robbed of angles unless he just dodges the first set and then continues on his angle there. So again, we're loaded. And sometimes, again, you may wait until, your stream of torps have finished before you launch your next set. So a good turn there. You maintain the turn through that rotation. And again, you got inside the detectability of here. So if you're going to avoid a target, and this is where priority target pops up, there'll be a little indicator like a 1 or 2 or 3 or how many ever bad guys there are in a little crosshair. And it'll tell you if you're targeted or not. So this guy obviously is going to target you. Well, if this guy is fighting Peanut down there and you're not being targeted, there's no reason to play defensive against him currently. This is your problem here. Now, he's got a 30-second reload. He's at 6 kilometers. Secondaries are not going off. He just fired a full salvo. You have 30 seconds to do whatever you want to without having to deploy smoke because no one else can shoot you. So when you go to maneuver defensively against another ship, you want to point your butt at them. Obviously, you want to look at them. And then you're looking to weasel through those shells. Now, of course, none of them hit you. So they didn't do anything to you. But just keep in mind as you play later on that be a little bit of an issue there. So we're going to start smoke deployment, which is fine. Now, again, keep in mind that if you want to deploy the widest angle of smoke, you keep your full speed. If you want to actually use it but still deploy it and be in it, then obviously you want to kind of creep along a little bit, drop that back down to like half or a quarter speed. The other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is not you deploy smoke for yourself and you end up blinding another person if you're going to sit here and try and farm this guy. So like if he was a little further out and he could spot for you, then you could park in smoke and just farm him with your guns. And as he closes with you, because he's got to, you just hit him with torps or hold him until the last minute, come rushing out of your smoke and then slap him with torpedoes at close range. Let's see. So we finished the smoke deployment. And so now another thing to keep in mind is that, say Agincourt, if this was for Agincourt, he fires and he still gets spotted anyway. If he fires and his detectability's down here, and another boat can see him, your smoke doesn't do anything really for him. And so yet again, we're closing the distance. We really don't have any reason to, unless you were going to bum rush him and torp him. But if you're going to do that, you close the distance with him. Just go ahead and get on in there. You're full health. He could kill you, with a salvo, but his guns are facing the opposite direction. And so you could, or at least I thought one of them was. One of the other things, too, is that you could look at him as well. Actually, zoom in and look at his guns and see where they are and see if they're focused on you. But that priority target will tell you that as well. But, I mean, you landed hits. You stayed undetected most of the match. You leave him with most of your hit points. It worked. So, I mean, the whole thing about this is that people can tell you all this business, but if what you're doing is working, then how much more can you do? So some little tricks in there. I didn't really see anything going on. There's some little nitpicky stuff you can work on, but you landed torp hits. You did 49,000 damage. The boat's only got 11,000. Something that I look for, or something that I heard a long time ago was you want to do at least your hit points in damage. Well, obviously, if it was a little boat like this, you want to do more than that. But if you can do your hit points and damage, then at least if they take you off the board, you've at least taken that amount of hit points from the enemy. Well, you did 50,000. It's quite a bit more than what you have in hit points. So don't be afraid to use your guns from smoke. Just remember that if you got to run, go back to the torpedoes. Smoking your allies and things like that is something that I cover. I sent you some other videos. It's some things that I cover off and on, depending on what I'm wanting to do or how I'm wanting to corral people. But the game worked out well. Everything was solid there. Anyway, I hope this helped you out a little bit there.